Good evening, friends. Thank you so very much for participating tonight. It is an exciting session tonight, and I wanted to thank Mr. Sobhani to accept being a speaker tonight. We're going to start with a prayer by a friend from Malaysia, and then Mr. Liu, who's been here almost every week. And after that, we have Ms. Shidan Tului Wallace. We are very happy to have her here tonight, and she will have the second prayer. Please go ahead. Please go ahead, Mr. Liu.
Okay, let's pray. Terangilah hati kami, kurniakanlah kami mata yang melihat dan telinga yang mendengar. Bukalah pintu pengertian sebenar dan dialah cahaya keimanan bersinar dengan gilang gemilang. Terangilah hati kami, kurniakanlah kami mata yang melihat dan telinga yang mendengar. Bukalah pintu pengertian sebenar dan biarlah cahaya keimanan bersinar dengan gilang gemilang.
هوالله ای دوست حقیقی، شرط محبت آن است که انسان جان فدای جانان نماید و سرگشته و سودایی گردد و رسوای عالمیان شود. از نام و نشان درگذرد و از جسم و جان چشم پوشد. شرط محبت در عالم امکان چنین است، دیگر ملاحظه نمایید که عشق الهی و محبت دلبر سبحانی چه اقتضا می نماید. باید به درگاه احدیت نیاز و نماز آری و طلب تایید کنی تا به شرط محبت الهی قیام نمایی. جانی که در راه آن دلبر مهربان فدا نگردد روح نیست، جسم است سود نیست، زیان است. حیات نیست ممات است. امیدواریم که به آن فدا موفق شویم. ولیکن تحیت و ثنا عبدالبها عباس.
You're muted, Firuz. Start again, please.
I'm so happy you're always here to take care of me. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Louis. Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm introducing our speaker tonight, Mr. Shaheen Sobhani, who's a member of the Baha'i community in Oakville and a founder of Swiss VBS, now part of BTS. He is currently an executive producer in the film industry and is particularly excited about the film Cast Aside the Clouds. Actually, we are all very excited about this movie. His topic will be how Baha'i core activities strengthen the communities they serve. Thank you very much, Shaheen, for accepting to be here. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Furuz John. I appreciate it. First of all, I want to thank Furuz. She started this right around the time of the pandemic, and it's going strong. And I see new faces every time I get to come, and it's always a pleasure. And it feels like she brings the world together once a week for about an hour, hour and a half, and that's really nice. So thanks, Furuz, for your persistence and your love and your generosity to keep this thing going. So everyone, tonight I'm gonna talk about something that is actually very special to the Baha'is around the world on what's happening out there, the practicality of how the Baha'i community is serving its community. So let me bring up my presentation so we can work on this together. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. So the first thing I'm going to say is these are just my thoughts and my observations. Necessarily doesn't mean it's correct. I'm just giving you what I see. And the topic today is these activities that Baha'is are doing around the world. How are they strengthening the communities they serve, and what are they up to? And before I go into it and actually talk about the activities, the impact, and other things that we're going to talk about, I just want to start with a story. You know, for me, I love history. I actually heard this particular story from Douglas Martin. For some of you that may know him, he was a historian. And when he told me this, it stuck with me very, very much. And he said to me, you know, we always have to look at our history to see where we are and where we're going. And he said, when you look at the history of the Christian faith, when it was in its very infant stages, they started doing things in Italy and close to Rome that were taking care of what he called the housekeeping of humanity. And I said, what do you mean by that? He said, well, it was the church, obviously. And the church started doing things like study circles. They actually called them that. Children's classes, youth programs, devotionals, using the same exact words we use today. And as the Roman Empire started to fall apart, it was these activities that was taking care of humanity, and it was the church that was saying, no, don't do that. We have a study circle, you can learn about that. No, that conflict, let's have a devotional and pray about this activity. To a point where when the Roman Empire fell, all of Europe basically fell into the lap of His Holiness Christ, and everyone became Christian. The question is, why did everyone become Christian? Because the church was taking care of the boring stuff, which was the housekeeping of humanity. So I think when you look at these activities, and boring is probably the wrong word to use there, it's the idea is that we're taking care of what I believe are the important things that humanity needs to focus on and hopefully become part of. So let's go into it a little bit. And some of this may be just a review for many people, and people may know all this stuff, but let's talk about it. And it's not something that happened overnight. If you look at the governing body of the Baha'is around the world, the Universal House of Justice, have given plans throughout the years to get us to where we are today. And in the last 25 years, and then some, it's a little bit more, probably closer to 30 years, they've been giving us and the Baha'i community guidance on what we should be focusing on. What are these housekeeping of society from a global perspective? And these are the core activities, which I'm going to go through each one of them and what they mean and what are they doing. It's the children's classes, the junior youth empowerment program, the study circles, and devotional gatherings. So these are the four, what I would call foundational core activities. This doesn't mean Baha'is don't get involved in other activities, but these are the core activities, the foundational activities that literally millions of people are engaged with throughout the world. And as you will see, it's not for Baha'is only. In fact, it's outward looking and inviting others to join in these core activities. The children's classes are the fundamental first piece because they develop the virtues for children, but is through the spiritual moral education of the children about ages 5 to 11. They use stories, songs, arts, games, and of course age-appropriate exercises for the kids to start really getting a foundation of a spiritual and moral foundation of what it means to be a spiritual being. And these activities usually have a interesting component because they strengthen the family and neighborhood bonds, because these children's classes are usually held within a neighborhood. So it's not like you got to drive miles and miles away. And I think some of the older Baha'is, if you remember, that is what we used to do. We had a central children's class and people drove from everywhere to come to that. That worked for that time, but now our focus is in the neighborhood. And these children, again, from all walks of life, different religions, different cultures, come and learn this curriculum that the Baha'is have created on spiritual and moral foundation. The next one is the Junior Youth Empowerment Program, and I would say this is probably one of the most recognizable core activities out there in the world, because it really addresses what I would call a sector of our society that people ignore, which is the age of 11 to 14, 15. And these junior youth, are looked at as trouble. We don't have time for them. They're not adults, they're not youth, but they're not children anymore. And these empowerment programs have really engaged these children at this really critical period of adolescence to study and reflect and to serve. So there's a big service component on these junior youth empowerment programs. And again, it's to serve your community. So going from children's classes, now you're using these moral foundations to help you reason, but more, how do you use them to serve your community? So the junior youth empowerment programs are probably, like I said, one of the most recognizable of the core activities that are out there in the world. Study circles is the component that's really from youth, age of 15, all the way to 115, if you want to call it. So everyone are invited to these study circles. And it's really again, we have curriculum for this where people get together and they deepen their spiritual principles on curriculum that's been created by the Baha'i community. A lot of the Baha'i writings are used in these books that are used for it. And the whole idea behind it is to really get up and serve your community. So it's really, as the second bullet says, translate learning into service. That's the whole purpose. And there's a sequence of books that we have for these study circles, and every book has a clear homework, if you want to call it, or activity to arise and serve. So the study circles are probably one of the foundational units, one of the core activities that really the entire community can get behind. And then the last one is the devotional gatherings, which is the fourth one. And this is really one of the ones that a lot of people start with even before they go to the study circles, because the whole purpose of it, as it says, is to foster unity and prayerful spirit. And, the prayers that are said are from all the religious traditions that we have as humanity. And it's really open to everyone. In fact, all the programs, I should say, are open to everyone, as I've said before, and are encouraged for everyone to come. Devotionals is a nice first step for people to come and pray. And, we in the Baha'i community have done that many times, especially when unfortunately a crisis or a disaster happens. But why do we have to wait for that? Why can't we have weekly devotional gatherings to really connect to the spiritual aspect of our lives? So these devotional gatherings really, again, bring people, communities, and neighborhoods together in a very important way. And now let's talk about, what do these activities do to help strengthen? And we talked a little bit about them when we described each one, but I think I've purposely picked out these bullet points to really hone in on what these activities do. I think the one thing that the world doesn't focus enough on is moral development and moral and spiritual education, or as the third bullet point says, spiritual identity. We talk all day about the weather, work, school, our kids' activities, basketball, piano, guitar, name it. We have so many clubs and so many activities, especially in the Western world. But how many of us, think about it for yourself, really take some time to talk about moral development, spiritual education, spiritual development, spiritual identity, and immediately start thinking about how can we have a service-oriented mindset? So I think the one thing that these core activities do is to remind us of that, to give us perspective that these are the things that we need to be focusing on. So immediately, as you go through these activities, you start noticing that your mindset is changing for the good, and hopefully to start having those types of discussions. And then when you get more into the details of what it does for children and youth and adults, it is this personal and moral development that occurs. Again, I have a 13-year-old. Yes, he does basketball. Yes, he does guitar, but he also has his junior youth program and study. And that is as important as all the other activities. Again, giving perspective to our own children of what's important. You can talk with your child all day of what's important, but if you do the opposite, then forget it. Might as well not say anything, because they're looking at you and your behavior and your action. So again, when you get involved in these core activities, it's not only an education for you, but it's an indirect education for the children and youth. The Junior Youth Empowerment Program and the youth in general, one thing that we have learned and have seen, they gain a purpose and a direction. Again, the society looks at youth as a commodity, that we could sell to, products that we could sell to, and that's all they're looked at. They're not taken seriously, and then all of a sudden you give them a purpose because it's the youth that were in the junior youth empowerment programs that are now running those programs. So if you ever are interested and want to see this in action, it's beautiful, because though they were junior youth at one time, and now they're youth teaching the junior youth, or children's classes for that matter. So when you see that in action, it changes a society, it changes a community, and it creates a leadership that is badly needed in the world today, as it says, in a constructive social behavior that's needed. Social cohesion and conclusion. So the one thing, again, because it's open to all, the one thing that the core activities do, and I've experienced this here with my son's junior youth program, many of the kids that are in that program don't come from the Bahá'í Faith. They come from their own cultures and backgrounds. But what they bring in this diverse element is so beautiful for all of us to learn from, And I think that is a key element that, again, is missing in our society. One thing I'll tell you, when I moved to Canada 10 years ago with the family, we happened to move to a new neighborhood where we rented a house in a new neighborhood. All the homes were, brand spanking new. And all the kids were playing with each other. They were having fun in the backyards, and especially in the summer, everyone was playing until the fences went up, right? Because everyone wanted to show, this is my piece of land and this is where I live. And then once one fence went up, the entire community had their fences up. And guess what happened? The kids stopped playing with each other. They didn't interact with each other. And that's the societies we are now accepting, that this is the way it is. I think when you look at society and how depression and loneliness has increased, there's reasons for that, So again, these core activities is to, again, encourage and bring that back into our neighborhoods. No matter that the fences are up, we're going to make an effort to make connection and build friendships and understanding. Because when you build that friendship and understanding, then the chances of conflict decreases, right? I'll give you an example of this, there's neighborhoods that all of a sudden the diversity is so great that no matter what you thought of that culture or their food or their language, it doesn't matter anymore, because your kids are playing with them in school and in the playground. So now all of a sudden, through globalization, we are stuck together and we don't have a choice but to figure all this stuff out. And again, these core activities are giving us guidance on how to come together and build these friendships and understanding that we need. The spiritual identity we talked a little bit about, but I think it goes a little deeper, because the spiritual identity is very personal. It's an individual that's trying to figure out what spirituality means. What do I have a soul? What do I have to do with it? How do I feed it? How do I interact with other people when it comes to that? So this encouragement that the core activities have on deepening your own spiritual identity is, again, something that is one of the foundations of the core activities, but it's something that, again, societies are because of materialism and many other things, we're not focusing on as much. So I'm hoping, as I'm talking and you're listening to all this, you get excited to participate and become part of the movement that the Baha'i community is moving around the world, to engage with these core activities, to gain some of the things that we've talked about so far. This social action piece, I think, is so important, because all the activities in the core activities, there's a grassroots service project component to it, and it's a local component to actually build society, to build our societies, to build our communities from the grassroots up. So let me give you an example of a story I heard about this that I think gives an example. So, when this comes from a country, West Africa, that my aunt happened to live there, and she told me the story that, because of the children's classes that the Baha'is were holding in the community, it became clear these villages that they did these activities, they didn't even have normal schools. I'm talking ABC, math, science, and so forth. And it became clear that we have to educate our children. We can't wait for the government of the country to come and build a school for us, which in the Western world, when you think of it, that's strange. Yes, there are communities in the world that do not have schools in their community, right? So what they did was they consulted and they decided to start holding classes with some support from curriculum that they got from an international organization. And they started teaching math, ABC, sciences, where? Under a big tree in the village, right? And kids of the entire village were encouraged, and they came. So much so that the parents of these kids became their teachers, and the village itself decided we need to build a school. And they built a one-room school for these kids to educate themselves. It was so successful that the village next door heard about this and asked this village, can you help us with our school? And this continued for many years until it got to a point where the government of the country asked the Baha'is to come and design a policy, an initiative along this grassroots initiative to build the schools in all those rural places that didn't have schools. And now the entire country has these schools because of that. So that's just an example that from a small little, what seems project, you can transform a whole society through the social action that you do. And it all started with a simple core activity, which was children's classes, right? So these things do work, and they make an incredible impact. And then, just like I started my story with, the church in Rome deciding to do a study circle and children's classes and so forth, they had no idea what the long-term growth was going to be. They just knew it was the right thing to do. And because of that, they created a society that became much more spiritual and vibrant and unified. I'm not going to go into what's happened afterwards because that's a whole discussion of progressive revelation. But right now, Baha'is around the world are doing what they were doing in a small area called Rome, Italy. But we are, as a Baha'i community, doing that around the world. So our children's classes are going to be the future schools of our society. Our study circles are going to be the places where people come together and really increase their spiritual identity. Our devotionals are going to be places where communities gather to pray and find relationships and friendships and collaboration. So when you're doing a devotional and 3 or 4 people show up, that's okay. Just remember that those are going to be 300 or 400 and eventually 3,000 or 4,000 and millions. That's already happening around the world. But as this grows, because the human being needs that spiritual nourishment, and we feel that these core activities provide that. So I gave you some example, the one I gave you with the country in West Africa, but there's tons, and we don't have enough time tonight, but there's tons of real world examples where the communities now support educational programs, which is the example I gave, environment, welfare, and it's usually the youth that are in the forefront. There's a quote from the Universal House of Justice that the youth will soar. And as an older person, I see what they're doing in these communities and the impacts that they're making on their communities. And then the question you should be asking yourself is, why does this work? Why is there 8 million Baha'is around the world, making an effort with these core activities? And what is it? What's the ingredient that it makes it work. And here's just 4 bullet points that I believe makes it work. So one thing is it integrates spiritual and social development. The example I gave you in the West African country, they started with spiritual development, but then moved it into social development with the schools that they were building to teach the normal everyday things that children need to learn. All the programs are all the activities, are grassroots and inclusive. They're open to all that want to be part of it and learn. And they are grassroots in the sense that, hey, we're starting a children's class within this neighborhood of 50 homes. And it's not somewhere you have to go to, but it becomes a much more. And those initiatives, if you look at all the projects of the UN and all the international organizations, I guarantee you, do your research. The ones that are the most successful are the ones that start at the grassroots and not from top down. They're sustainable and adaptive because the people involved in the communities are actually doing these core activities with everyone. It's not an outside source coming in. It's from within, again, because of the grassroots. And I think the last one's the most important, which is intergenerational, in the sense that, there's so many of these activities, especially in the study circles and devotionals, where people of all ages are contributing and people of all ages are benefiting from each other. And, I had a friend that visited me from Indiana, and I took her to a Baha'i gathering. And the first thing she noticed is, wow, that young person was an equal to that older person that looked very wise, and they respected each other. Now, for me, that's so normal, and many of us, maybe that's normal, but that's what she saw was interesting for me. And we shouldn't underestimate how important that is and when we experience it ourselves. I'm not going to go more into this evidence and data, but again, I started the talk that there's literally thousands of communities that are doing this right now, and some are very small, between 10 and 15 activities. I could tell you in Sydney, Australia, there's communities, there's over 1,000 of these activities in some communities. Toronto itself, where we live close to, they have what we call the learning site, where their activities are in the hundreds. And when I say activities, I'm talking about core activities. And we are learning so much. And I think that's one of the powers of these. We are always in a learning mode, and we're very humble in that learning mode. And because of that, the strengthening of the community and the sharing with the community is happening. So, suddenly we're learning so much because it worked in Colombia and it worked in Papua New Guinea. And how do we read our reality, and how can it work right in our own neighborhood? So the learning that's happening on a worldwide scale, based on evidence and data, is absolutely gorgeous. So in summary, to just, sorry, I took a lot of time probably, but just to give you a flavor of what we talked about and what these core activities are, we're trying to build virtues. We're trying to strengthen unity in these communities. We're trying to empower service, which is the outcome of all these activities. And because of that, we're transforming communities. And I highly, highly encourage you, if you're not part of one of these activities, join one. Doesn't matter which one. You could teach a children's class, to become part of a study circle, to eventually, devotionals, or even support a junior youth empowerment program. Because once you get in it, you'll be stuck. There's no way out, because it changes your community, and you see the importance of it. And I wanted to end with a quote from Baha'u'llah that really answers why Baha'is even consider doing these activities. And it's a quote that I read recently from the writings of Baha'u'llah. It's from the Gleanings. And I just absolutely love it, because it really, really gives perspective of how we as human beings, should think. And, this is guidance from Baha'u'llah, the Prophet founder of the Bahá'í Faith. But when you read this, just, take it to heart of what our what our purpose should be in this few moments we have on this earthly plane. So Baha'u'llah says, the days of your life are far spent, O people, and your end is fast approaching. Put away, therefore, the things you have devised and to which you cleave, and take firm hold on the precepts of God, that haply you may attain that which he hath purposed for you, and be of them that pursue a right course. Delight not yourselves in the things of the world and its vain ornaments, neither set your hopes on them. Let your reliance be on the remembrance of God, the most exalted, the most great. He will ere long bring to naught all the things you possess. Let him be your fear, and forget not his covenant with you, and be not of them that are shut out as by a veil from him. So, thank you everybody for listening, and I think it's open for Q&A, and yeah.
I just thank you so much, Shaheen, and appreciate it. Somebody wanted one of your slides, why it works. Would you like to put it back?
Yeah,
I think
sure.
they want to take a picture or something. Meanwhile, I wanted to welcome Dr. Valerie Dawn. I thought I wouldn't be alive to see you again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Nilija, this is why this works.
No, actually the one before.
Oh. This one?
Real world. Yes. Thank you so much. Thanks. Thank you.
No problem.
I would like to welcome Cher and Gibby and Mr. Perimal and Roya Jan and all the friends who are here tonight and they're being added. Thank you so very much. Friends, please feel free to ask questions. Mr. Sopani, would you like us to record the Q&A?
It's up to you. If I say something wrong, it wasn't me.
Well, friends, please feel free to ask questions. But may I ask, please, to ask short questions? It's about 60 people here, so I would appreciate it. Faridejun, please go ahead.
Yes, I want to say Allah Akbar. He is my handsome cousin, Shaheen. And Shaheen, his father was so handsome. And from childhood, we go to their home, and his father always, make joke to me. And his grandfather was history of the faith. And his father saw, you don't know what kind of family. They are all generation from Fort Tabarsi. I'm proud of Shaheen Jun. He's serving Baha'u'llah. And you're handsome exactly like your father. Love you. Just I want to mention, love you very much.
That's my agent, by the way, everyone. So you guys know him.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Thanks,
Please, Mrs. Tului, please go ahead.
I was wondering if at some point Mr. Sobhani could just say a few words about the movie that he's been behind producing. Sure. I'd like to hear a bit more about it.
I could do that maybe if it's okay. I'll do it at the end, and as long as Firuz stops the recording, I could even show you a trailer of it.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank
you so much. Mrs.
And also, because you asked where are the recordings, I think the recording of all of Firuz's firesides are at the Oakville Baha'i community. I'll find it and put it on the chat.
Thank you. Any more questions? Roya Jun, very, very welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. Sylvia, Gary, welcome. I have a question myself, but I wanted to give the opportunity to others. If not, probably I will ask my question. I'm wondering how you can translate. You talked about translating learning to service. Can you speak about the dynamics of such a transformation?
Yeah, it's actually an excellent question and an important one. Um, when you think about it, there's always let me start from the beginning. There's always a physical reality that we learn from and a spiritual reality we learn from, and they're the sources from God. So I think, how you transform yourself. So if you want to be an engineer, how you transform yourself to become an engineer is to learn about math, about, if it's civil engineering, about construction or whatever, medicine. If you want to become a doctor, you got a whole bunch of things you got to do. And I think what these core activities do is give you the tools to truly understand the spiritual aspect and the spiritual nature of who we are as human beings. And just like in school, and you're learning those subjects to be able to do those things, what I love about the core activities is once you learn how to do these things, you internalize and you start doing, and then you start serving. So it's for someone to go and say, you should serve, but don't have the tools of what that means and why I should serve and the importance of service and so forth. It's very difficult to do any of that. So I think the one thing that the core activities have done is to do that. And by the way, I just want to make it very clear. Where do these core activities, who thought of these things? Well, it starts from Baha'u'llah himself. When he said, to be a Baha'i, you have to you have to do an obligatory prayer every day. That's one. And you have to read from the writings in the morning and in the evening and put it into action. From that guidance from Baha'u'llah, we've created all this that I mentioned to you today, which are the core activities. So the whole purpose is to basically prepare you to be able to then to serve. I hope that answers your question for us.
Yes, but I do have more questions. Please, Janus, go ahead, please. We can't hear you. Is it me or we can't hear you? Gary, don't go away. I saw you. Gary, no. Janus, we can't hear you. Can you hear us?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, can you speak a bit louder, please?
Sure. Can you hear me now?
Very, very little, yeah.
Okay. I could try to go out and come back again. Maybe that would help.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. We'll wait for you. Thank you. Thank you. I have another question. I will ask it until Janus John come back, and that is these different gatherings that the Baha'is actually started all over the world. What are the locations and neighborhoods and places that they thrive and they work? By the way, welcome, Regina. Wonderful to see you. We have a prayer in Portuguese as well, Shahinjan. Go ahead, please.
Oh, beautiful. Sorry, were you asking that question for us?
Yes, please. Would you like me to repeat?
Please do. Please do.
Okay. My question is that these neighborhoods that all these different sessions are being shared, what kind of neighborhoods? Every place in New York, in South Africa,
Excellent.
South America, how vast is really this
Excellent question. Thank you for asking that, actually, and I didn't bring that up. So think of every corner of the world and every society and every village and every city. These core activities are happening. You know, the Baha'i World Faith is the second most widespread religion in the world in 205 countries and territories. That comes from Encyclopedia Britannica. Christianity as a whole, not a denomination, is in 255 countries, and Islam is in 170. Why did I give you those stats? Because this is the guidance for Baha'is around the world. So in 205 countries and territories around the world, in every one of their cities, villages, and so forth, this kind of core activity is happening. It did start in villages of Colombia, where it was tested and how it worked out, and it grew from there, and it again was very successful, more in what the world calls Western world, the developing countries, but they are much more spiritually in tune and grabbed on to these core activities and did incredibly well. And then now the Western world has finally caught on and realized the importance of this spiritual education. And some of the largest communities, Sydney, I gave you an example, Toronto, London, England. I mean, these are some of the largest communities that are implementing these core activities and have tremendous success. But when you look at a place like Sydney or London, for example, they are so big, the success is in the actual streets of that community where these activities are happening. And then you may have a pocket where nothing is happening, and then, you know, a few blocks away, again, more activities. So I'm not going to say in every corner of every street of London these are happening, no, but they're growing within sectors of those bigger cities that are actually doing these activities.
Thank you. Thank you. Jinusjan, would you like to ask your question? Do you think we can hear you? No. No.
Something wrong with her microphone.
I guess so.
Jinus, you can type your question if you could hear us, and we'll see that.
My, that's okay. That's all right.
We
I
can
can
hear
hear
you
you
now.
now. I could hear you now. Yeah.
You know, first, I just, and thank you so much, Mr. Sopani. It was a fantastic talk. I love core activities for so many different reasons. And I was just going to say, for me, a practical thing that was, that I sort of pushed me to do the junior youth activity some years ago was that a friend of mine, her daughter was trying to commit suicide.
Wow.
And she was at that age of junior youth, and for that I decided to go and study the junior youth
Sharda, could you
classes.
repeat her question? It seems that you heard it.
Yeah. She hasn't asked it yet, but I will.
No, you know, I don't have a question. I'm just sharing my experience that my feeling, you know, for the core activity was so practical. You know, I just saw this need in my community, in my friend's life, and then I started to study the Ruhi class for junior youth, and I started the Ruhi junior youth program. And it was so successful. These kids, I fell in love with them so much that I can't even describe. The intelligence, the caring, you know, the ideas that they would come up to do service in the community, was just fascinating. It's just like, I know we all know it's good, but I just saw it from my point of view how amazing, how beautiful that was. I just want to share that, and thank you again for sharing all that you did. It was fantastic. I love the bullet point things. But
Thank you.
Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
For people that didn't hear, I Jinus wanted to make a comment that the core activities that she's experienced and the impact she's made, especially with a friend who had a daughter that was going to commit suicide, and it's these core activities that brought her out of that and made a huge impact on that particular family. So anyway.
Thank you. Any more questions? Because I still have a question. Any more questions? Mr. Perimal, do you have a question? Mr. Perimal is joining us from Australia.
Oh, wow.
Please unmute yourself, Mr. Perimal.
Yeah. I don't have a question, but all what is said is great. Thank you so much, dear Shaheen.
Thank you. Thank you for
This is
being
a
here
wonderful.
from Australia. What time is it in Australia? I don't even know.
Now it's almost 10 a.m.
Wow. Thank you for staying up.
Thank you for all this, what you have said. Great things made simple. This is what we have been doing. You must continue doing this. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Uh, I I ask you my question, and if there is any more questions, we have Will from Eskasoni First Nations, and he can let us know if these programs are there as well. But my question is, all these books are translated in all these languages that you spoke about, all these countries? Can you
Yes.
explain?
Again, thanks for asking that. So exactly, they are translated into many, many languages in all these various communities that are using both the study circles, the junior youth empowerment programs, the children's classes. And of course, the writings of Baha'u'llah, you should know, are translated into almost every language and many, many dialects around the world. So Baha'u'llah wrote in Arabic and Persian, and Shoei Effendi, the guardian of the Bahá'í Faith, translated many of it into English, and that's our foundation that we do translations from. So we have a long way to go. I think it's I'm not exactly sure, but last stat I heard, we're in single-digit percentages of the writings of Baha'u'llah that have been translated. So even if it's 9%, you could imagine there's an ocean that's still out there we haven't even seen.
Thank you. Thank you. May I ask Will to share? Will, can you share the situation in First Nations with us, please?
In Eskasoni here in Cape Breton Island, our community engages in some of these core activities, but I think like many First Nations communities, we're still trying to learn how to adapt the Ruhi system, the core activity systems, to the native way of doing things and the native language and that. So we have a spiritual assembly that's been probably one of the longest functioning ones in Canada of the native communities. It's from the early 70s and it's still functioning, it's still going. So the assembly acts like a father to this community and takes very careful care of it. And they're working very hard at adapting these core activities to our community's needs. But it's sort of a slow process to adapt them. And I'm sure that's happening in many places in the world too, where they're trying to learn how to apply these core activities.
I'm so glad I'm so happy. Oh, sorry, Will, when you're done.
I'm just saying that one of the things is to try to adapt it to the culture that we want to plant that seed in.
Exactly. Thank you, Will, that's exactly what I wanted to thank you that you brought that up. Even though the core activities and the core aspects of them are being used around the world, how they're being used, how they're being translated and actually put into action in communities. You know, I've seen study circles in some parts of the world and in another part of the world, and they're the same stuff, but the impact and how they're done is very different. And that's why, you know, one of the principles of the Baha'i Faith is unity and diversity. And just to see how these are implemented is a great example of that. So thanks for bringing that up, Will.
Thank you, Will, for being here every week. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead. Shahla June, I'm sorry, but I would be with absolute humility. I'll give the priority to Gary. Gary, don't shake your head. I never know when you stay and when you go.
I'm going to stay, and I'm going to yield to my beloved sister. And her hand was up first, and I will wait until she finishes.
Thank you. You see, this is a kind of fireside we have, Shine John.
That's beautiful.
Shahla Jun, go ahead, please.
Gary, go ahead.
It's gonna be a while.
I think Gary has learned to aruf.
Yeah. Oh,
Yes.
he even went off video, so you better go, Shala, now.
Please go ahead.
Well, mine is very quick. I don't know if it was mentioned because I arrived late from my other meeting, and that these books for the children's classes, junior youth, and study circles are subsidized and they're free, given to teachers and the animators and the youth who are involved in this. So, especially in communities that some of us have, where children are not able to purchase these books, we can get them free, not only for the animators and the teachers and the junior youth, but also for all our students. So I just wanted to mention that. That actually is very helpful in parts of my area where the level of income is very low. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you. Thank you, Shahla Jun. Gary?
Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned that through Ruhi, it's gonna, though it's the same materials, it's different because this isn't a cloning faith. Everyone contributes and it's a different look. And it's inclusive of, people worship. The way religion was introduced to me is different it's a different experience for many. And there are populations that is to be honored. So it's not a thing of cloning and framing. It's just doing the work. And Abdul Baha said, when he mentions about a soul, guiding one soul is greater than the sovereignty of a kingdom or something to that. I vaguely remember that, but that's the thing. So it's not even a thing of count. And then there's a piece in the Quran where it talks about one grain will bring forth 7 sheaths, and every sheath contains one single. So it's those kind of things we never know. But too many times, because of the way the society is, we want everything quick. We don't know. All we do is plant the seed. We don't stand over it and water it and watch it. You never know. And I embrace every soul that I encounter. That's a noble being of God. And so it doesn't have to always be in a structured way. You can have a fireside, you can teach, you can share with everyone that crosses your path. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. And thank you again. Your presentation again is wonderful. And I will review the recording as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Gary. And I appreciate the comment because it's so, this isn't, the principle is unity and diversity, not unity and uniformity, right? And that is so critical. So I'll give you just my own personal experience going through a study circle, especially when people that are not from the same faith get together. I learned the most in those study circles because all of a sudden I learned, wow, in the Quran it says that, and you just read this? I didn't know, or, just their experiences in life, because we're souls, we're spiritual beings. One of my friends, Rainn Wilson, who you all know, I did a project with him, and it was a digital fireside. And one of my favorite things in that fireside, he says, we're spiritual beings that have meat suits, and this is so true that we need to focus on. But when those spiritual beings shine in these core activities, that's where they shine, right? And it's so uplifting and to learn together in that way. So thank you for that.
Any more questions? Peter, do you have any questions? Do you, how is your...
There's someone, Ilona Weinstein.
Ilona Weinstein is my sister from
Montreal.
Ilona used to live in Oakville and a member of the assembly. Yes, Ilona, go ahead, please. She's Ilona Sala Weinstein.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. I love this tonight. I just love it. And I loved that, that sense of history that the early Christians were doing similar things. That's an awesome bit of information. What's different is that it's like a worldwide university, and there's sharing going on. And if something's going really well somewhere in Zambia, that information goes to the counselors in Haifa and they spread it. So here in northern Quebec, we can use the same information or do the same thing that they're doing in Zambia, like just in terms of games or songs or techniques or ways of teaching. So I just wanted to add that aspect because you really have shown the magnificence of the core activities.
Beautiful.
And thank you.
I just want to say one thing before Peter says. I think this is something I have to say. In the early days, and this story also comes from Douglas Martin, he said, we're in society, and the Baha'is did this, people from Canada went to Colombia to learn how they're doing it, to figure out how to do it here. Think about that. How many of us in our organizations, corporate world, say, hey, go to Zambia or Colombia and figure it out and then come back? It just doesn't happen. Why? Because we, and when I say we, I mean collectively, people that believe that the earth is but one country and mankind its citizens, can do that because they believe in that, right? So if the Colombians or the Zambians have figured it out, that's for all of us, not just for them, right? So this sharing aspect is one of the critical parts of these programs.
Thank you. Peter, go ahead, please. It's close to 1 o'clock.
I'm very interested in the spiritual difference between being spiritually alive and being spiritually not quite so alive, as in the Christian concept of being born again. So it seems to me that in the West, we have an epidemic of a materialism, which makes a god, an idol, out of actions and service with no spirit. And I think the core activities will, and they are, taking off and going viral in areas where this spirit has not been lost to materialism and corporate capture. So I can see the difference between those that have somehow retained the spirit and those who are kind of just going through the motions with service, with actions, with behavior, but there's not the same spirit that I sometimes see in some Christian churches which have retained that spirit. And I can go on about the letter A and the letters B and H, but that's a bit nerdy perhaps. But I think when Baha'u'llah withheld the letter A in Persian Hidden Word 77, whereas the Babis had the upright aleph, just like the Christians had and have the alpha or the aleph, the Baha'is have the B and the H, but Baha'u'llah withheld the A in Persian Hidden Word 77. And it seems to me that unless Baha'is either immerse themselves in the Dawnbreakers and get the spirit of the Aleph from the Bab, or if they go to for me, an Anglican Alpha course and understand a bit more, because for many years, the doctrines of crucifixion, atonement, and resurrection made no sense whatsoever. And it still seems a bit weird to me. But the Alpha course, it made it a little bit more understandable. And then if you go into the Dawnbreakers, it becomes perfectly clear that spirit of the letter A. Now, if the Baha'is only have the B and the H, and they don't immerse themselves either in an Alpha course or the Dawnbreakers, they're only going to have the B and the H. It's 66% of BHA, the glory, not 100%. And I think that puts those Baha'is at a real disadvantage. And I think Shoghi Effendi translated and edited the Dawnbreakers and sent it to America. So America would have first dibs, if that's the right phrase, in getting the full 100%. Whereas the 66% isn't necessarily going to cut it. But I think in countries in the developing world where they haven't lost all their spirit to corporate capture and materialism, they are ahead of us massively. I think I've said basically what I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Peter. Appreciate it. Shanja,
No,
any comment?
I think there's one comment I want to make, which I think is interesting, and it's a great observation of why did this get captured first in this, again, what we call developing countries, because their spiritual antennas, if I can call them that, they're so much more in tune to the spiritual aspect of the world because they haven't been poisoned by the materialism. Peter is absolutely correct on that. And that's why they get attracted, because they know the spiritual aspect of life. Their perspective is very clear. I mean, if you read that quote I read to you at the end of my presentation to the people of that part of the world, it's gonna grab them immediately, right? While a Westerner will go, yeah, but you got to go to work, and let me think. There's too much thinking, right? I don't know how to explain it, but that way. And what's interesting, this is a fact, that in these big cities that I told you about, London, Sydney, Toronto, the reason these activities are working and great, it's because it's still within those communities of immigrants, of people that have come from other parts of the world that already are in tune, but now happen to live in these cities. So it's growing from those. Now, I don't want to totally dismiss the locals of London or Toronto or Sydney. They're also part of the activities, no doubt. But the spark, even in those big cities, happened from these people that came from countries that are already spiritually in tune. That's a reality. And, it's unfortunately, one of the failures of Western society that we have thrown spirituality out the window with the baby, which is our soul. And I think the problems of the world are rising because we have to start realizing that that's what's happened. So I think it's an important comment, and I've learned so much more from the third world country immigrants than I have from others, because they're spiritually in tune.
Thank you.
And I have a story to tell you about that, but I want to hear more questions that I think is important.
Make sure you won't forget it, please.
Go
ahead. Bob, Louise, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much. It's been a real eye-opener for me. One of the things, and thank you, Will, for your comments from Eskasoni and the whole relationship with the indigenous population of this country. I think a lot of the, the establishment of language and courses and all of these kind of things all lead to one, in which you were very articulate with, is one family. And this traditional lifestyle is really being hampered by all of the materialism that's in Canada, by the Indigenous people. And I just feel that there's something, we talk about churches, we talk about mosques and things like that, but the spiritual root of this country is Indigenous. And there's very little collaboration there. We have a huge population in Ottawa of Indigenous people from every corner of this country live and work in Ottawa. And the smallest population of Baha'is is Indigenous. There's so few. It just makes me so sad. But the thing is I think that that'll be the connection. Once we have a kind of a family feeling, instead of, like, don't bring the writings out right away. I'll tell you what happened is that we have what are referred to in the Baha'i world devotional gatherings. And when I first moved here to this little community, I asked some of the people that I met. I said, "Would you like to come to a devotional?" I said, "Oh, nah, no way, no, no." But I changed it to a sharing circle, which is traditional to the indigenous population. If you want to discuss something, okay, if your youth are going wonkers, if mothers are not being trained to take care of their babies, all of these things, or how does a young person get employment, education, how do you get into all these? You have a circle, and you have the whole community, the whole family discusses these things. So this is what we changed it to, a sharing circle. And people said, of course. So we choose a theme and everybody brings their intelligence. Every person that comes to these gatherings have a certain intelligence and a certain familiarity with the community that they live in, that we live and breathe in all over the world. I mean, everybody's from all over the world here. So I think there's something to be said that whoever is responsible for introducing Ruhi, because I was there at the beginning of the Ruhi training. I went to Bolivia, and I went to Colombia, see how they were doing it there. And the indigenous people, that's what was very outstanding for me, is they had the families. And families got connected to this kind of introduction to establishing the Baha'i community. So thank you for those reminders. And we should really pray for that. We should really pray that this community doesn't forget about who was originally here and what they did to train their young ones, to be inclusive of their elders, to ensure that mothers were never felt alone in raising their children, and these kind of things. So anyways, I could talk on and on, but that is just a little reminder. The Guardian spoke about that. Abdu'l-Baha spoke about that. He said, should the indigenous population, should the indigenous peoples of this country be educated, that they would illumine the world. So anyways, I really want to encourage us all to say a little special prayer about that when you're thinking about core curriculum. At the core of this country is the original inhabitants, at the core. And they had, for, I don't know, many years, they knew that all the other races would arrive in this country. They looked forward to that. That was a prophecy, that people from all the four directions would come to their country. Imagine that, how happy they were when they all started arriving. Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you.
I have to make one comment because it's so important, the topic that was just brought up. A person that's investigating the Bahá'í Faith, I had a call with him yesterday, and he asked, actually, Shaheen, you're talking about all these incredible universal faiths. Don't you think other people have had prophets that we don't know their names? And the answer is 1,000% yes, because in the Bible, God tells Abraham, I will never leave you alone. Mm-hmm. So you don't think the indigenous have had prophets while Jesus Christ was proclaiming his mission? Of course they did. And we have to remember that when we're talking to these cultures, that they come from a background and probably have had religious upbringing that we know nothing about. And hence we got to listen, we got to learn, and probably gain a lot of wisdom from that. So I think it's a very important comment that's made. And again, to Gary's point and others that have made it, it's through that where you actually take the core activities and make sure it fits where you're doing them because of that learning. So to change it from devotional, because it has a context that is not right to a gathering is exactly the right thing to do. But the essence of what you're doing is called devotional in Toronto, right? So
Yeah.
and that's what the beauty of it is, because then you're talking soul to soul, and that's what's key.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the chat they wrote, "Thank you so much. It was beautiful." And I think this is addressed to you, Louis. Gary had his hand up, and Gary, don't tar off. And after Gary, Peter, please. Gary?
Well, she kind of touched on what I was saying, because a lot of times in going into spaces, it's like, we're going to deliver something. No, assess the community and ask, see how that community moves. It's a sharing effort, but and I think too many times it's like this: we're coming to save you, we're coming to do this, we're coming to do that. No, I mean, my family is so diverse in their religious practices, from Jehovah's Witness, Muslim, Christian, various faiths of Christianity, all of these denominations of Christianity, all these things. And I just always think about the divisive part of it, because the inserts of my way or this. But when we have the conversation about what we have in common, those are the productive ones for me. And it's not me coming to, well, as a Baha'i, this, that, and the other. It's a mutual exchange. I don't go to share. And I think that's what we need to do when we share the faith. A lot of times, the question in gatherings that I brought someone to, the first question is, "Are you a Baha'i?" And that's kind of like and if they say yes or no, it's kind of, how do we mingle with them? No, we're going there to exchange. It's a spiritual exchange. And yes, Baha'u'llah is the prophet for this day, but he did not exclude those that came before him. It's an inclusive endeavor. So that's the piece. And then I'm looking around this space, so many different life experiences, but here we are in this common faith. And that's what I bask in as well. And we bring what we bring for our love of God. And that's the invitation that I was presented with in the faith. I've had my ins and outs, because I kind of felt there was this framework that I didn't fit in. But until I stamped on my heart, well, Baha'u'llah stamped on my heart, that noble have I created thee, that's when I walk my walk. And I don't strive to please man. I strive to be pleasing unto God and God alone. But I come in my authentic self. I'm not trying to be anyone other than who God created me to be. And that's this loving, noble being. And it's in all of us. It's not some of us. It's all of us. So how do we nurture that in everyone, that keeps them in as a part of the whole? And so I'm glad that was mentioned. But too many times it's like we're going in to save the day. No, we're going to till and nurture and be a part of community. No one's giving up. We're all sharing.
Bravo.
Thank you, Gary. Really appreciate it. We have 5 more minutes. Peter, please go ahead.
I'd like to say, don't write off the white people too soon. Because Abdul Baha said some wonderful things about the Baha'is of London, the people of England. The House of Justice in 1982 sent a message to Dublin saying the deep roots of Europe are very spiritual. It might have been covered up by a load of scientific materialism on the surface, but deep down, there's a very deep spiritual root of Europe. And I think that, I think Shoghi Effendi wrote to Canada, the Canadian Baha'is, about 1948. You Canadians, you're like the English. You're slow to start a new idea, but once you get your teeth into it, no force on earth can stop you.
Yes.
So I think once, and I listen to George Galloway all the time, because to me, he's an intelligent statesman, not a shill. But he says that when he looks at his activists and his GB Workers' Party, It's all the ethnic minorities that are doing all the legwork, doing all the effective work to bring communities together. The English haven't got it. But when they do, when it starts to go viral, because, England's a tinderbox just waiting to explode in terms of change and waking up. So when that spirit goes viral in England, it'll be massive because the inherent deep spiritual roots of England will start to blossom instead of just being completely dormant and hidden at the moment. I think it's the same is true of America. My friend Steve, who's married to a lady from Iowa, says that America has the capacity to reinvent itself, to reconfigure itself. And I think when the spirit of some white people understanding the oneness of the entire human race, when that comes to the fore and they refuse to accept all this rubbish anymore, America will do the same thing. So I think there's a potential for the entire Western world to have a spiritual revival, maybe quicker than we think and sooner than we think, which will overturn all this corporate capture and materialism.
Peter,
I
I
think
have to
it's
say,
about
because
that.
you brought up England, one of my favorite quotes of Winston Churchill is the following. He says that you can count on the Americans to always do the right thing after they've tried everything else.
Can I quote a wonderful passage from him from 1941 when he admittedly was trying to butter up FDR for help? But it's just wonderful what he said in this 1941 speech. Believe me, for I know, in the long run, the motivation of the United States of America is not the methodical calculation of profit and loss. It is that shining spark of moral sentiment which lifts the hearts of men and nations and is the very spiritual foundation of humanity itself.
Isn't that interesting? It's
Yeah.
what Abdu'l-Baha said, and it's what the Guardian said too. So fascinating.
Thank you, Peter. You're functioning so well at 1 o'clock in the morning. I really, I am very touched. Thank you. Please go ahead, Shahlajun, the last question.
Yes, I'm so glad that Louise mentioned the First Nations. I think that's one of the most important things often crosses my mind because I feel a sisterhood to the First Nation because we were the underdog in Iran, the Baha'is. And when I heard the story of the First Nation, it was like sort of, not 100%, but sort of knowing their pain. And when I moved to Montreal in the 60s, we had a huge First Nation Baha'i community. We had the Institute in the north. We had Kahnawake. We had assembly on Kahnawake. And I was so excited, and I kept on talking about when are we going to go to Kahnawake? And every year we had 2 or 3 picnics there. So it was picnic time, and we didn't have a car, and this Baha'i friend drove us to the picnic. And all the way there, I was just couldn't wait because I just wanted to sort of, because they also look a little bit like me. At least that's what I think. So uh, I was a little bit lonely, I have to say that. And so I thought like going home. So I arrived in Kahnawake and I saw a combination of a lot of people. I don't know if Elona was there. She may have been there, I'm not sure. Anyway, so I was standing in a group talking, and there were 2 African American Baha'i friends there. And I was there, and there were 3 gentlemen there. They looked a little bit like me, but I was worried. I didn't want to say anything, but I just was dying to know if they were the First Nations. Eventually, I asked one of them, "Are you the First Nation?" And the other one said, he's Chief War Eagle. I said, "Oh, Chief War Eagle, I'm so glad to meet you." And I have been dying to meet you. And 2 or 3 people said to me, what are you talking, Shala? You know, you're embarrassing the chief. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry if I'm embarrassing you. Somehow I think of you like a king. Yeah. And the younger man there, he said, well, I suppose he's the king. I said, yeah, I was hoping to get some stories about Kanawaki, and because they built all the high rises in New York. So I was dying to know a little bit of the history. So I thought to myself, I wish he would dress in the costumes. So I would feel more inclined, because the Bakhtiyars in Iran often dress in the First Nation culture, and I love that. And I was very young. I'm so sorry if I'm embarrassing anyone. And Chief War Eagle, bless his soul, he went and dressed and came back. And I had the most wonderful experience of my life. I felt at home and actually loved, and actually was like going back home with Chief Origo. I think if we really connect culturally with each other, we find that we are really brothers and sisters, and we have so much in common. And I wish we could have Kanawaki come alive again.
Thank you very much, Aluju, for sharing. I appreciate. Shanjan, is there anything you would like to add?
No, that speaks for itself, the beauty of that.
Okay, thank you. It's 8:30, and with your permission, we will start our devotions. But may I ask Mr. Liu to talk about their devotional at 7 in the morning in Malaysia, please? Somebody wanted.
Bruce, can I just because it was asked about the film, I just want to say a few words.
Yes, I totally.
It's okay. It's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
It's all right.
I totally
Yeah,
apologize.
I just want to talk about it and show the trailer.
Absolutely.
And then I'm gonna sign off because I got to put my little boy to bed. So
Sure.
if that's okay. But before I can, what I'm going to talk about, you can record. But when I show the trailer, if you don't mind,
Sure.
Stop the recording. So anyway, everybody, just real quick, because there's a lot of interest in it. It's a project of almost 5 years. I got involved about 2.5 years ago. There's a book that was written by a Baha'i woman in Iran called, in Persian, Khatarat Yutab, which is recollections of Yutab, which is a name. And it's about a Baha'i girl who falls in love with a Muslim doctor. It's fictional. But through her book, she introduces the Bahá'í Faith in a way that's very natural through a love story. In fact, I've showed it to a couple people that we're about to work with to distribute it. They said it's like an interfaith Romeo and Juliet, right? So the idea of how this Baha'i girl and her character is very intriguing to this Muslim doctor. And then all of a sudden she's pulled out of this love story and taken to prison because she's part of the BIHE, which is the underground university. And then it's through his eyes, you're trying to figure out, why is this happening? And what is this about? And why would we do this to people? So it's the first of its kind. We've never created a feature film which the Baha'i Faith is brought out in a very natural way through a love story. So I'm just going to show you the trailer, and then after it's done, I'll put the website for the movie in the chat for people that are interested. So let me
So you want me to stop sharing or recording now?
If you don't mind, yes.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course.
Is there a family member of yours involved in this as well?
Because Fudus knows the family member. Yes, my daughter, who's in the film industry, is a co-director of this particular film. And the film is called Cast Aside the Clouds. And it's a poem from Tahereh And it's a poem about independent investigation of truth. And if you read the poem, it's absolutely gorgeous. So it's about this idea of you got to cast aside the clouds to see the truth.
Thank you.